Hello, and welcome to an adventure like no other. Far more than what you have known, there is something far more to be known than you can ever know. And it is all about you, the real you, your real awareness with your intuitive senses. You were never taught that the real you, your real awareness, is operating 5 bodies in cause and effect, restricting creation. You have been taught to think that you are only a one-dimensional human person, with a mind and emotions, and with a very short lifespan on this planet Earth. More than what your mind can grasp is your intuitive senses that can be opened to see beyond all your restrictions. You have always had an opening to see beyond what you have known, and this has been purposely kept from you, and this is where you have heard rumors and stories about your nightly dreams. Your so-called dreams is your opening to your intuitive senses that will allow you, the personal you, to excel beyond what you have previously known. Everyone has intuitive senses, and very few people take advantage of what is possible by recognizing something more than their mind can understand. Creation has its place for all of us, and then there is all life, which is far more than anything than what can become with creation. Everything we experience is necessary for us to survive with whatever we choose and decide our life to be. New Kevin Smith is the great witness to something more than what can be taught and learned in any school. It can be so that when anyone first listens to Kevin's intuitive side experiences, also known as real side experiences, from what their personal mind has known, Kevin's manner of expression will at first be rather different to comprehend. This is where this introduction and reading the new books and Facebook groups will help. Have fun deciding. DUANE the Great Writer and Seer.
In this real side experience, I would find myself walking through the streets of my local neighborhood, accompanied by my sister Lindsay. Initially, then, nothing untoward seemed to be occurring, all rather mundane. Although showing little indication of interest with any references, all is related on the physical. On the real side, Lindsay is on occasion receptive to such ideas. She has previously involved herself with a few of my assignments, but has a tendency to deviate to the opposite polar extreme of intentionality, even to the extent of working at the behest of the darker forces. The guides are always there for everyone, regardless of their life choices, but it is the individual who must decide to open up to the reality of life, to allow it in. And if not, the guides can do nothing to assist, as this is a free will decision at work, and by the same token, I always leave the door open, so to speak, maintain an agreement with Lindsay that allows, at any moment, her to feature in my experiences. For she always did show promise in regards to establishing intent with the all-ears and its recognition, but always there is the possibility she may abuse this agreement opening and operate derisively. Nevertheless, on this occasion, we were simply traversing the streets of my town, as I mentioned. I would be taking the opportunity to regale her with real ears-pertaining references, and she seemed moderately accepting of what I was conveying. As we proceeded, the streets known to me, recreated exactly as they are on the physical, would become unfamiliar, and indeed present within them would be a community of what seemed to be homeless people. Numerous tents had been erected that served as their domiciles. Impressions revealed, however, that not all was as it appeared to be on the surface. The real awareness was detecting an underlying danger that was not visually apparent at this stage, and I would decide to withdraw from the area we had wandered into. Lindsay, although not alerted to anything untoward, was agreeable to my chosen course of action. Before we could vacate the scene, however, a number of the tent dwellers would emerge, surround us, and incapacitate us, that we were immediately rendered unconscious, though I wouldn't see the means by which this was accomplished. As it transpired then, this was a trap of a kind. These characters had been waiting for us, mingling among the genuine homeless, and as we entered their midst, so they launched into action and captured us. The scene fading, and where consciousness was restored, I found myself in a larger building, the sense of a fair duration of time having elapsed, and during which I had been subject to a curious black magic style ritual of some description. Of my sister there was no sign, though impressions revealed she had been as though contained, the sense of her being trapped somehow, and she would not be alone. For it seemed the group of black magical practitioners had been busy securing a number of targets and displacing them, as though locking them into dimensional imprisonment, removed from the overall multi-dimensional simulator layout. I had no impressions as to the identities of the others that were contained, but I suspect they were those considered a nuisance by the Dark Force controllers that these black magic characters were working at the behest of. They had a different fate in mind for me, however. Instead of containment, they were attempting to use their magical abilities to gain complete control of my created consciousness, that they could utilize all my varied expressions, aspects and vehicles that effect from it as tools of destruction, as though an effort to puppeteer my created vehicles and weaponize them. At this point it must be stressed that whatever transpires in creation and befalls the created body forms has no bearing on the true reality of our real awareness selves. For the real awareness isness reality is one aside from creation, and where no ideas can impact. Idea causes and their effects are exclusive to the simulators. The real awareness and the isness it is a part of is a reality that is everything. If something is created, this then can only be so in a simulation where that which isn't everything can be isolated and experienced. An idea, the ability to agree with it and it be our experience, cannot be so with our true reality selves, the real awareness. That this situation had befallen me indicated agreement on my part, as regardless of the intent of others, for their formulated ideas to impact and feature as my experience, so I must agree with them, upload them to my consciousness, so to speak, where effected will be their nature. Either then a case of agreements in relation to these particular black magic practitioners that I was unconscious of, as yet to be addressed and released, allowing this situation to unfold, or a deliberate conscious agreement that this experience could be so, that perhaps valuable insights and viewpoints could be gleaned. Oftentimes, the more abrasive the situations, the more capable we become in the face of such adversity, and we can be apprised then also of all the various methods the dark forces are employing as they continue to operate destructively and interfere with our awareness journeys. And overall, if it is the experiences which are our all-ears recognizing comparisons, we surely endeavour to take on as rich a range and diversity of experience as possible. To fully embrace the real awareness position, we cannot hold to any idea restriction which detracts from it. This would include that which we dislike, the experiences we deem unsavoury. In essence, we must be open to everything, or by the very notion of our denying certain experiences, so these are ideas also embraced, as we fall into the creational mire of categorizing everything as that which we like and that which we don't. As I said, these are dark magical wielders intended to utilize my creational aspects and vehicles as weapons, that even absent of the real awareness and its affording of unlimited capability through the body forms it animates, my multi-dimensional body types have overwhelmingly developed themselves that they are rather capable, and if they could be controlled like puppets, they could prove valuable tools. The black magicians had conducted a curious ritual by which my body form they had kidnapped was being gradually removed from the dimension it was in, and into an alternative dimension that was the domain of these ill-intended characters, but in such a way that it was neither in one nor the other, as though bridging the two and retained there. This would render my body form invisible within the dimension I currently was in, but controlled from the dimension that was the dominion of the black magicians, as though their realm was of a particular where such control of others can be exacted if the target can be placed between the two positions, a means by which facilitates the control of the individual and allows the execution of their orchestrated objectives within the dimension they were semi-removed from, though they become no longer perceptible, an invisible force from the perspective of any other present within that dimension, reminding me a little of how some individuals will cling to their physical position so adamantly that they are unable to transition fully to their next dimensional position at the death of their physical body forms, and rather operate in positions between the physical and where they would have found themselves next, referred to as ghosts, and where some can be destructive and create mayhem on the physical, either unintentionally or deliberately. This was a method being exacted on this particular body form I was operating as, but the intention was to acquisition all my aspects and body types, and place them between the respective dimensions they resided in and the dimension of the black magicians, whereby doing so, control of them was apparently made possible. The procedure was drawn out and gradual, my body form becoming less substantial as moments passed, but I would take the opportunity to speak to the leader of the black magicians, the head of their order, and point out the nonsensical nature of his actions, and we rather got into a lively debate regarding creation, as my knowledge in regards to it and its cause and effect nature seemed to conflict with the ideas he embraced. As I mentioned, agreement was allowing this situation to unfold, and generally, if we are put through certain experiences, as unsavoury as they may seem to the personal self, if we have gleaned or accomplished all we can through them, if they have served their purpose, we tend to extract ourselves from them, a case of severing agreement to the ideas that are manifesting such situations, and we are liberated from their continued effects. I would put the brakes on this insidious plot, halting it in its tracks, to the bewilderment of the black magicians who were unused to being denied. Although it wasn't a case of simple extraction seemingly, that for whatever reason, the restoration of my body form's position dimensionally and beyond the ability to be controlled by the black magicians was a little more involved. The black magicians had no control of my body form, as was their intention, and would be prevented from even attaining other of my vehicles and aspects. But the body form was retained and trapped between the dimensions still, and rather wandered off absently, as was my impression, as I now had an awareness view aside from the body form. Necessary was it seemingly to then locate my meandering, dimensionally bridging body vehicle from the dimensional position it had operated in, and so I would create a second body form within the building of the black magicians, animating it as a kind of tracker, if you will. As I mentioned, my lost and confused body aspect was invisible to all within the dimension it hailed from, except, that is, for the new body type I was animating. I had the impression of the importance of locating the body form drifting between dimensions, as from the personal side I had a sense of loss, of being lessened somehow, as though a piece of my created overall construct was absent, and to not restore everything to how it was previously, so this would unduly impact the personal self, and express detrimentally throughout my multi-dimensional aspects, vehicles, and including the physical level body type. The new body form I was animating was indestructible. I had ensured that nothing would interfere with its singular objective, that of locating my lost aspect. In other words, it was utterly absent of idea agreements that should any other attempt to harm, eradicate, or interfere with its operation, as it harboured no ideas in relation to others that allowed this to be, all efforts in this regard would be unsuccessful. As such, the black magicians were unable to adversely impact this new body type, despite their attempts to do so. I simply brushed through them and vacated the building. And as I continued on my journey, it seems the dark forces overall were realizing that for my dimensionally bridging body form to remain lost and dissociated, so this would indeed be to my detriment, and as such they mobilized all manner of agents and the ill-intended unaware to intervene and attempt to waylay me. But retained was my position in utter absence of idea agreement, and all their efforts to prevent my locating my lost body form would be found wanting, as every body type assailing me, and weapon that they brandished had no bearing. I simply walked through it all. The scene would end there, however, in the midst of my objective of locating the bewildered body type, and as nothing could really prevent my from doing so, it seemed the restoration of it to its rightful dimensional position, and where it no longer would be in a state of confusion, was a foregone conclusion. Until it was restored, I maintained a sense of being somewhat fragmented from the personal side, and just before waking I would find myself momentarily in my consciousness representing recreated physical level house, though operating through another body form, as the body type tasked with locating my bewildered, displaced aspect was still in the process of completing its assigned objective. Present with me would be DUANE, and he was affording me assurances that all would be well in regards to this situation, and his intention was to remain with me until my lost aspect had been recovered and everything restored. Overall, then, revealed would be another mechanism of disruption as executed by the dark forces, the band of black magicians, with the capability of displacing aspects, vehicles, and body forms in such a way that they can be controlled from the dark dimension they hail from. Though, as I mentioned, individuals can develop themselves with all manner of skills and attributes, but that they can impact our experience and body form is dependent on our allowing this to be so. For everything transpiring creationally and in relation to others is based on agreement. We set the parameters and limits as to the extent by which others can impose upon us. But as I also said earlier, we are oftentimes put through such situations as there is awareness benefit to be derived from such. And had I not proceeded with it, yet another dark force method of interference would not have been unveiled. As to the fate of Lindsay and the others contained, this again would be effects they would have to deal with. They, like all of us, are the architects of our experiences, and ultimately we decide as to our situations in relation to others. That we can intervene on the behalf of others, but just as it is their agreements, allowing the ill-intended to impact them abrasively, so we must also be agreement permitted to intercede into their self-created affairs, and only within the parameters as dictated and set by them.